They skipped my law school graduation, said a vineyard tour was more important. My mother said, "We didn't think you'd actually make it." Days later, I was on a tram billboard. That's when they called. I passed the bar exam on a Tuesday. Just like that. After 7 years of grueling classes, sleepless nights, and buried self-doubt, I became Kareem Zahir. ESQ, I should have been elated, but all I felt was this dull emptiness. My name is Kareem. I'm 27 years old. I live in Sacramento, California, and I just became a lawyer, something no one in my family ever believed I'd do. I waited all morning for my phone to ring. Not because I wanted applause or anything. I just figured, maybe this time, they'd say something. But nothing came. No messages. No, we're proud of you. Not even a congrats. I called my mom around noon. She answered on the third ring, her voice bright and breezy. "Kareem, can I call you back in a bit? We just landed in Lisbon." "Portugal?" I asked. "Yes. Your dad and I are doing a vineyard tour. So beautiful here. You wouldn't believe the view." I hesitated. I passed the bar. There was a pause. A light, breathy laugh. "Oh, that's wonderful. Wow, you actually did it." "Yeah," I said, swallowing the sting in my throat. "I did." "Well," she said, like I'd just told her I changed a tire. "That's great, sweetheart. Really, we always figured you'd pivot eventually. Honestly, I'm glad you saw it through." "Wait, what do you mean, pivot?" "You know." She waved it off. I could practically hear her smile through the phone. "We never really thought law school was your thing. But hey, surprise. You followed through." She said it like I was a toddler who finally ate a vegetable. I couldn't speak for a second. My mom kept rambling about how she and my dad were going to try port wine later, how I'd loved the hills of Douro Valley, and how funny it was that Lean, my sister, had predicted I'd quit after 1L. I didn't say anything else. I just listened. Like always. After we hung up, I sat on my couch staring at the blank TV screen. My diploma, summa cum laude, tucked into a cheap frame from Target, leaned against the wall. My roommate had tried to convince me to hang it up, but I never got around to it. I guess part of me was still waiting for them to notice. My parents hadn't even come to my graduation. They said the Portugal trip had been booked for months, that it was non-refundable, that nobody really goes to those ceremonies anyway. They went to Lean's twice. Once for undergrad, once for her MBA. They flew out for Sammy's high school robotics competition in Atlanta last year. I watched it over livestream. But for me, no seat in the audience. No flowers. Not even a card. Just a "that's great, sweetheart." I laid back on the couch and stared at the ceiling. I thought passing the bar would change something. Make me feel like I finally earned a place. But all it did was remind me I've been invisible to them for years. And honestly, I was tired of pretending that didn't hurt. 3 days later, I got a text from Lean. It was a photo of a city tram, one of those newer ones that run through downtown, fully wrapped in an ad, front to back. But it wasn't the ad that made me sit up. It was the face on it. Mine. The words stretched across the middle. Kareem Zahir, defender of the voiceless. Legal aid Sacramento. My jaw actually dropped. I'd worked with them for a year during law school. Interned every weekend. Took calls from low-income tenants and parolees during lunch breaks. Even translated housing forms in Arabic for first-gen immigrants who were being pushed out of their neighborhoods. I never expected them to remember my name, let alone feature me like this. Before I could text Lean back, another message came in. Then another. And another. Screenshots. Videos. People tagging me on Instagram. "Is this you, Kareem? Dude, you're famous now." Even one from my professor at Hastings. Proud doesn't begin to cover it. "You earned this." My phone buzzed nonstop for the next hour. Then I saw the voicemail. "Mom, 5:42 p.m. 1 minute, 27 seconds. I pressed play. "Kareem. Honey, your father and I saw that the tram. It's all over Facebook. Lean sent it to us, and now your Aunt Dahlia is sharing it on her WhatsApp group. Everyone's saying it's really something." Pause. "I didn't know they were putting you in a campaign like that. You never told us." Another pause. Her voice softened. "I didn't realize your work was getting that kind of attention. We didn't know how serious you were about this legal aid stuff. Maybe we should have. I don't know. Maybe we missed something. Anyway, call me when you can." Click. "No, I'm proud of you. No, you deserve this." Just confusion. I stared at the phone, blinking. Then I looked back at the diploma still leaning against my wall. It had taken everything I had to get here. 3 years of debt, sleep deprivation, nights spent tutoring Sammy in math before I opened a single casebook. I ate ramen and peanut butter sandwiches for weeks just to afford the damn bar prep course. And the whole time, they never asked what I was working on. Never once said, "We believe in you." They called it a phase. Said real jobs had 401ks and company stock. Now that my face was plastered on the side of a train, suddenly I was worth a phone call. I sat on the floor for a while, legs crossed, phone buzzing beside me. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because even in this moment, my moment, I didn't feel seen. Not really. I felt like they were only calling now because someone else finally noticed me first. Sammy showed up the next evening. I was halfway through reheating leftover shawarma when I heard the knock. No warning. Just 3 soft thuds on the door. When I opened it, he stood there in his usual hoodie and scuffed sneakers, holding a round blue tin, the kind that usually holds sewing supplies more than cookies. His face was sheepish. "Mom made these," he said, shrugging a little. "Well, technically she bought them and put them in here, but she thought the tin made it feel more homemade." I didn't say anything, just stepped aside and let him in. Sammy dropped the tin on the kitchen counter and hovered, like he wasn't sure if he should sit down or leave. He looked older than I remembered, not in the physical sense, but in that tired, stretched-thin way people look when they've been carrying too much. "She's pretty upset," he said finally, avoiding my eyes. "The billboard, I mean. The tram. All of it." I kept stirring my food. "She told us she didn't think it was real at first," he continued. "Then Lean showed her a post with, 3,000 likes. And Mom just, I don't know, man. She cried." I turned, startled. "She cried." Sammy nodded. "Took a picture of the ad, too. The big billboard, near Arden Mall. Said she went there alone while Dad was golfing. Just stood in front of it and stared at your name for, 10 minutes. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Scrolled, tapped, turned it toward me. There it was. A blurry photo of my mom, wearing sunglasses and a white scarf, standing under my face, under the same bold letters that had once felt surreal. In the photo, her hand was pressed to her chest. Her mouth was tight, and though it was pixelated, you could tell her eyes were swollen. She looked small, alone. She said she was trying to figure out how to make it right, Sammy said quietly. But she doesn't know how. I sat down at the kitchen table, suddenly too tired to stand. I stared at the cookie tin, the picture, the linoleum floor. I didn't know what to feel. Guilt? Anger? Vindication? All I felt was heavy. "You don't have to forgive her," Sammy added. I think she finally gets it. That she wasn't there when she should have been." I nodded slowly. Still didn't speak. Later that night, I got an email. A formal invitation to the Sacramento Legal Honors Gala. One of those swanky, black-tie affairs hosted at City Hall. My name was listed in bold. Recipient, Distinguished Public Service Award. There was a line at the bottom. "You may bring up to 3 guests." I closed the laptop. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't think about my parents. I thought about who had really shown up. The people who had been there when no one else had. And I already knew exactly who I'd invite. The text came 2 days later. My mom, again. "Hi, Habibi. I heard about the gala. So proud of you. Could I come? I would love to see you be honored." There was a softness to it. No guilt trip, no sarcasm. Just careful. I stared at the screen for a long time, thumb hovering above the keyboard. But I didn't reply. Not right away. Maybe not at all. Because by then, I had already RSVP'd with my 3 guests. Mr. Beckett, my old neighbor who used to drive me across town every Saturday for LSAT prep because my dad said gas was too expensive. Mrs. Ortega, the nonprofit mentor who once bought me shoes for my first court observation and never told a soul. And Andre, the former parolee whose wrongful conviction case I had helped overturn, who still sent me holiday cards. Those were my people. The ones who'd showed up, really showed up, when it counted. Later that afternoon, Lean called. "No hello, no small talk. You're really not inviting them?" she said, like I had just canceled Eid. I pinched the bridge of my nose. "No, Lean. I'm not. Mom's been trying," she insisted. "She's been crying about this every day. You know how rare that is. She even called Aunt Farah for advice. She never calls Aunt Farah." "So what?" I said. "They missed everything. Every milestone. Law school, graduation, passing the bar. They were on vacation while I was walking across the stage by myself." Lean didn't respond. "I'm not punishing them," I added. "I'm just honoring the people who actually stood beside me when no one else did." "You're being petty." "No, I'm being honest," I said, calmly but firmly. For once, there was a beat of silence, then a long exhale on her end. "You know Mom's probably going to show up anyway, right?" she said, quieter now. "I know. She's telling everyone she is. That's her choice." Lean sighed again. "I'll be there, you know. In the audience. Just not on her side." "I know," I said. "Thanks." She didn't argue anymore. Just hung up. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with the invitation again, running my fingers over the raised gold letters. I thought about all the times I'd begged for their approval, quietly, without ever saying the words. I thought about the nights I'd sat in the law library until it closed, then walked home in the dark because I didn't want to ask for bus fare. And I thought about how none of them noticed when I nearly gave up halfway through 2L. But I kept going. Alone. And now? Now I was done begging. Let them sit with their regret. I had a suit to iron, a speech to finish, and 3 real guests to prepare for. The rest, the apologies, the sudden pride, the last-minute desperation, they weren't mine to carry anymore. He came on a Thursday. I was getting ready to head out, suit in the garment bag, speech folded in my jacket pocket, when I heard a knock on the door. It wasn't urgent, not loud, just patient. I opened it, and there he was, my father, holding a limp bouquet of grocery store flowers. Not roses or anything fancy. Carnations, drooping a little at the edges like they hadn't been watered. He looked older than I remembered, or maybe just smaller, like someone had turned down the volume on him. "Hi," he said, clearing his throat. I didn't move. I just leaned against the doorframe. I saw the article," he started. "The gala, that you're getting honored." He looked down at the flowers like he wasn't sure why he brought them. "Your mother and I, we didn't know how much this meant. Or how much you've been doing." "No," I said quietly. "You didn't." He nodded, as if he expected that. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I crossed my arms. "For what?" He looked up, finally meeting my eyes. "For not showing up. For assuming you'd always be fine. For treating your work like it didn't matter." The words were shaky, unsure, like he was trying to speak a language he hadn't practiced in years. "We were wrong." "I was wrong," he said, voice low. "I didn't understand what this was for you. I thought law was just a phase. I never thought you'd actually build something." I let that sit in the air for a moment. "You didn't come to my graduation," I said. "I know. You went to Portugal." He swallowed hard. "We were stupid. We thought we'd celebrate when it was all over, when it really mattered. But I guess we missed it." I looked down at the flowers. I didn't want them. I didn't want pity. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "I don't want anything," he said quickly. We want to see you walk in. That's all. If you won't let us in, we'll wait outside. Just to be there." His voice cracked, just slightly, on the last word. And that did something strange to me. Because I didn't feel anger anymore. I didn't feel pride, or triumph, or vengeance. I just felt tired. Tired of the quiet pretending, of the invisible ache, of the years I spent carrying the weight of being overlooked. Tired of holding my breath, waiting for people to treat me like I mattered. "I'm not making any promises," I said. He nodded, not pushing. "We'll wait anyway," he said. "If that's all we can do." Then he handed me the flowers and left. I stood in the doorway for a long time after he walked away. The carnations dangled from my fingers. I didn't put them in a vase. I just set them on the counter, zipped up my garment bag, and went back to getting ready. Because tomorrow wasn't about them. It was about me. Finally, the night before the gala, I got the text. "Mom, we're outside. We just want to see you walk in. That's all. Please." I stared at it for a long time. No crying emojis. No guilt. Just that one line. I didn't reply. The next day, City Hall was glowing. The kind of old-school grandeur with marble columns and polished brass fixtures. Inside, they'd hung banners for the Sacramento Legal Honors Gala, blue and white and gold, clean and crisp like a fresh page. I arrived early, checked in, shook hands, gave polite nods to a few attorneys I recognized from courthouse benches and coffee lines. My name tag had a little star on it. Recipient, it read. Mr. Beckett arrived first, in his usual suit from a decade ago, pressed within an inch of its life. He grinned when he saw me. "You clean up all right, Kareem." Mrs. Ortega came next, clutching her purse and tearing up before she even stepped inside. "You didn't tell me it was this fancy," she whispered. "I would have worn heels." Andre came last, looking sharp in a navy blazer and a crooked tie. "This is a lot of lights for a guy who used to write briefs in his pajamas," he said, slapping my shoulder. We took our seats. Third row, center. But just before the ceremony began, I excused myself. There was a hallway that led to the side entrance, a narrow one, with glass doors that overlooked the sidewalk. I stood there just out of view, and there they were, my parents, standing on the other side of the glass, just like the text said. My mother was in a light gray blouse and heels I hadn't seen since Lean's graduation. My father stood beside her, one hand in his coat pocket, the other holding a folded program someone must have handed him outside. They didn't try to come in. They didn't knock. They just stood there, peering in through the doors like they were watching something sacred they couldn't be part of. My mother saw me. She didn't wave. She just looked straight at me, through the glass, through the years, and mouthed 2 words. "I'm sorry." Her face was blotchy, her lips trembling, and for one horrible second, I wanted to go to the door. I wanted to open it and say, "Okay, come in. Sit down. Let's try again." But I didn't, because that little boy who used to press his spelling tests onto the fridge and hope for a smile, that boy didn't need their permission anymore. I turned. I walked down the hall, back into the warm lights and quiet music. And when the MC announced my name, Kareem Zahir, defender of the voiceless, the room stood to applaud. I didn't look back. Not at the glass. Not at the door. I walked onto that stage with my head up, chest steady, and hands that didn't shake. Because for once, the moment didn't belong to who wasn't there. It belonged to me. I didn't see them come in. One minute I was standing beside the podium, posing for photos with the other honorees. The next I noticed a stir near the back of the auditorium. Heads turning, whispers fluttering down the rows like falling leaves. Then I saw her. My mother, seated near the end of the back row, hands folded tightly in her lap. No makeup, no polished smile. Just a small, pale woman who looked like she didn't know where to place herself anymore. My father sat next to her, stiff as a church pew. His suit looked too heavy for the room. His eyes stayed fixed on the front, not scanning, not searching, just watching. They hadn't said a word, hadn't made a scene. They'd simply walked in, found two empty chairs far from the stage, and sat down like shadows. I didn't react, didn't flinch. I just kept going through the rest of the night. Took photos, smiled for the cameras, shook hands with judges and deans. Mr. Beckett clapped, so hard his palms turned red. Mrs. Ortega kept dabbing her eyes. Andre leaned over during my speech and whispered, "You killed that, man." And I did. I delivered it calm, clear, and clean. When I said, "Some of us grow up learning how to advocate because no one ever did it for us," I felt the back row go still. After the ceremony, there was a reception in the garden behind City Hall. String lights hung from the trees. Jazz music floated over from a small quartet by the fountain. People buzzed around the drink tables, praising speeches, congratulating awardees, asking for business cards. I was sipping a lemonade when I saw them again. My parents stood near the far edge of the garden, away from the chatter. They didn't move, didn't mingle, just stood there like they'd stepped into a painting they didn't belong in. Nobody spoke to them. They were too well-dressed to be mistaken for staff, too out of place to be part of the inner circle. I could have ignored them, walked out with the people who mattered. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I couldn't leave with that weight sitting on my chest. So I walked over. My mom turned when she saw me. She didn't smile. Neither did I. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. My dad cleared his throat. That was a hell of a speech. I nodded. Thanks. For a moment, none of us said anything. Then my mom whispered, "You looked strong up there. I didn't know you had that in you." "You never asked," I said quiet. "I should have," she said. I looked at her. Really looked. She wasn't the polished, sharp-edged woman who used to critique my posture at family dinners. She looked soft now. Human. Like the silence had humbled her. "I'm not here for an apology," I said. "We know," my dad replied. "We just wanted to see you. That's all." I nodded. "You did." They both looked like they wanted more. A hug, maybe. A chance to fold back into something. But I didn't offer it. Not yet. Instead, I said, "I have to get back. My guests are waiting." My mother nodded, biting her lip. My father's jaw tightened. "We'll wait as long as it takes." I didn't say anything else. Just turned and walked back toward the people who had earned their place beside me. And for the first time, I didn't feel angry. Or even vindicated. I just felt clear. Like the fog had finally lifted. They found me in the courtyard after most of the guests had left. The string lights were dimming, and the caterers had started clearing plates from the tables. Mr. Beckett had already called a rideshare. Mrs. Ortega had hugged me 3 times and made me promise to visit. Andre had disappeared somewhere, likely charming a judge. I was alone, standing near a marble bench, letting the night settle into my bones. That's when I heard her voice behind me. "Kareem." I turned. My parents stood a few feet away, hands empty, eyes tired. I didn't move. My mom took a cautious step forward. "Do you have a minute?" I didn't answer, just waited. She looked at my dad, then back at me. "We wanted to say something. One last thing, if you'll let us." I exhaled slowly. "Go ahead. We failed you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "In so many ways. We weren't there when it counted. And we told ourselves, we thought you didn't need us. That you were fine on your own. You didn't even show up to graduation," I said. Not bitter. Just fact. My dad nodded. "We know. You were drinking wine in Portugal while I crossed that stage alone." "We know," he repeated, eyes steady. "You didn't believe I'd finish law school." "No," my mother said softly. "We didn't. And we were wrong." Silence settled between us. She clasped her hands together. "I don't expect forgiveness. I wanted you to know we see it now. All of it. Everything you did. Everything we missed." I looked at my dad. "You always believed in Sammy. You flew across the country for Lean's internship showcase. But for me, you barely asked how midterms went." "I didn't understand you," he said quietly. "That's not an excuse. It's just the truth." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. "We can't change the past," my mom said. "But we're here, however you'll have us." I shook my head slowly. "I don't know what this is going to look like. I'm moving to San Diego next month. Got a position with a justice reform initiative. I leave in 3 weeks." My mom's breath caught. That's wonderful. I mean, of course. I didn't realize you were leaving so soon. I didn't tell you, I said. I wasn't sure I wanted you to know. My father looked at the ground. Do what you need to do. We'll wait. However long it takes. That hung in the air for a moment. No desperation. No push. Just stillness. I nodded, finally. Take care of each other, I said. That's all I ask. My mom stepped forward, just an inch. Will you call us? When you're ready. I don't know when that'll be, I said honestly. But I'll think about it. And that was it. No hugs. No tears. Just the quiet truth between us. I turned and walked toward the exit, my dress shoes clicking softly against the stone path. Not out of anger. Not with a grudge. But with peace. Because I wasn't walking away to make them feel anything. I was walking away because, finally, they did.